Okay, so this is a survey of cars in a school parking lot based on the origin of the car. So basically, like, who's the maker of the car. And then it's based on students and staff for the breakdown as well. So you can see all that in the table. And ultimately, we want to know, is car origin and driver type independent? So there's a few different things that we are going to do with this, but let's first look at, we'll start with that. So let's look at the American-made, USA cars among students and among staff. So I want to know basically what the breakdown is for percentages of students driving an American-made car and teachers driving an American-made car. So among students, it's going to be 107 out of the total number of students, so 195. And among staff, it'll be 105 out of 164. And those percentages end up being, the first one is 54.9%, and the second one for staff is 64%. So, based on that, okay, this would be like when we looked at the ice cream example. Do you think these are independent?
Can you define that? Because I don't think I understand what that means still. Like,
Basically, like, the percentages would have to be equal for them to be independent. Saying that it doesn't matter if it's a staff or a student, an equal number of them, like, proportionately drive. Because obviously we can see there's less staff than students.
Mm-hmm.
So the number should be the same proportionally if they're independent.
So this isn't independent then?
Correct.
Okay.
So basically what we can see is that staff is more likely to drive an American car than a student, because 64% drive an American car, but only, we can just round it to make it easy, 55% of students drive an American-made car. So staff are more likely to drive American cars than students. So events are not independent.
so we only need to test that one category to know, like, the whole thing's independent.
Yeah, so if they had been the same, let's say hypothetically they were both 55%, then I would have gone and done the same thing for European.
Okay.
And if they were basically the same, again, plus or minus 1%, I say, then it's safe to assume they're independent. Because if those two percentages are basically the same, the third one has to be. But if you had like 5 things, I would keep going until you get down to basically one left, just to ensure that they really are independent, because you don't want to say that they are and maybe the first 2 line up, but then to, like, you know, if we went back to like our ice cream example, we don't want to say like, oh, well, it was the same percentage for chocolate, but then like Rocky Road was maybe our next flavor, and oh, well, that was the same percentage, so that means that vanilla and strawberry are going to be the same, because what we saw obviously with vanilla and strawberry was that they were not the same. And so you would want to make sure that you're checking through to ensure that they really are. Now, more than likely in the book, if they're giving you 2 that are end up coming out to be about the same, they probably all are, but don't just make an assumption that they're going to be that way.
Okay.
Because now, if you did it on a test and let's say they actually weren't, but you said that they were, and I see, oh, you worked 2 and you didn't work the final, one more to make sure that it was going to be or whatever out of the 4, I'm probably going to understand where you came from and probably going to give you most of the points, but just not all of them. If you're wrong in what you say, so it just depends. But I mean, if I had chosen, say, European, that one might have actually given me a closer percentage if I had tested that one first, because those numbers are more different, and so is the total number of staff. So that might have given me one that would have been misleading, so I would have wanted to check another one and make sure if that one had come out to be. So.
And you said if it's like plus or minus 1%, like that's the range?
I would say so, because really that's a rounding thing potentially. So, and obviously it's not going to be exact every single time, but it should be very, very close. So, so one more thing with this, if we wanted to do a marginal distribution, for American cars, obviously they didn't give us any totals on that side, which I can add them up and I can find that value, but I actually want to know if I add up for students and staff out of the total number of students and staff combined, I want to know what that number comes out to be. And so when I do that, I would get, I already wrote that, 107 plus 105 divided by 195 plus 164, which is going to give me 212 out of 359, and that comes out to 0.59. And what you're actually going to find out about that is that right there indicates a lack of independence. Because that number should be 50% if what we found to be was true. Or like the same as what these were. Because I guess saying 50% isn't necessarily an accurate statement, because if there's more things, they won't necessarily be 50%. But if there's more things to add up, there won't. Than just 2, they wouldn't be 50%. What is happening? Okay, a lot happening there. Let's see, down to number 12, and this is number 12 out of the book. So, an investigation compiled information about recent non-military plane crashes. The causes, to the extent that they could be determined, are summarized in the table. And so we have 40% is pilot error, 5% is other human error, 6% is weather, 14% is mechanical failure, and 6% is sabotage. So, I feel like there's more to this than, hold on. I feel like there's a second page to this that has questions on it. Okay, there is. So, I'm going to do part C first. Actually, disregard. I'm going to do it over here. Well, I'm going to so I have more room. I'm going to draw the pie chart on the other page, but we'll answer part A and B first. It's like, I feel like there's somewhere that there's more questions, because there wasn't really a question involved on that other page. I was like, what's going on? All right, so is it reasonable to conclude that the weather or mechanical failures caused only about 20% of recent plane crashes? What do you think?
Well, they don't. Does it matter if they don't add up to 100, like the percents?
So yes, but not for this question.
Okay. So.
That's part B.
Oh.
It would be like, it'd be more than 20%, right?
I think it would be 20 if it's 14 and 6.
So 14 and 6 is 20%. They have not told us that, like, I don't remember what that page says, but they haven't said, like, oh, like, a crash can be related to multiple things, right? They've implied that it is one category only. And so basically for this one we would say yes, because each crash is assigned to only one category. And so when we add up those two things, it gives us 20%. So for part B, and what percent of crashes where the cause is not determined, they don't actually say, like, in there, you know, that they weren't. But what they said, they gave us the information for the ones that they did have an answer for. And I'm gathering you had already looked to say they don't add up to 100. So we would just need to do 100% minus... and then I'm just going to do it in parentheses because that way I don't have to write a minus sign every time. So 40 plus 5 plus 6 plus 14 plus 6. I don't have that page in front of me, so if one of those numbers is wrong, just let me know. And that would give me, is that 40? 71. So 100 minus 71 be 29%. So 29% of the crashes, we didn't know what the cause was. Or hypothetically, maybe those 29% was where there was multiple things involved, so they just didn't classify them. Since they didn't tell us, we don't know.
Like a miscellaneous kind of.
Yeah. Kind of like a, you know, maybe like a bird flew into the plane or something. I don't know. Apparently that happens a lot. Wouldn't have realized that.
If that would have happened to me my first time flying, I would have never gone back. I was looking out that window for like dear life.
Right. All right, I'm going to scroll back to the other page to do this display. What display do you think we should use on this one?
Pie chart, because I heard you say.
Yeah. That's not the only option, but yes, that is what I'm going to do.
Oh, that's going to be easy then, because we just have to split it into like...
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to split it up. So, but that's why I wanted to come back over here and do it.
Do we split it 5 ways or 6 ways for like the missing percent too?
So we want the total pie chart to add up to to 100%. We can't have a missing piece, so we're gonna have to put in the other, like the not determined. So I'm actually gonna write in not determined down here, so that I don't forget. I got multiple classes yesterday with the fact that my iPad can do this. It was great.
I hate that it can do that.
Why?
Because I can't do it.
Yeah, everyone's like, my paper doesn't do this. Like, sorry. All right, so we had 40% is pilot error. I think I'm going to just label these, like, I'm going to write over here on the table how I'm labeling them. So that way, I've just put my little abbreviations for what each thing is going to be. So pilot error was 40%. And then, since not determined was such a big piece, I'm going to do that one next. I like to do like the biggest to the smallest. That way I can divide up my remaining area into the little small chunks. So basically almost 30%. So that should be like 10. Oh, that wasn't it. That might be a little off. Let me move it down. I don't know. We're going to just say that that's good.
Are we gonna need like protractors and stuff or no?
No.
We'll do that. Okay.
Mechanical failure is my next biggest one, so I'll go ahead and do that one. See, this is why so it's gonna be off. It doesn't look right. Because then I have 3 things that are gonna be huge. Okay, hold on. Close enough. So mechanical failure, and then basically I'm dividing up the remaining area essentially like 3 ways because
What do you think about pen short? That's what I thought.
so, and like I said, I'm looking that it's close enough, not that it's perfect. So don't worry too much about that. All right, then hold on. Does one of your pages actually say homework on it?
Is it one I was supposed to?
I don't know. That's why I'm
Yes,
asking.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the third to last page.
Because I didn't screenshot all of them, so I didn't know which.
It like goes homework and number 7 starts with.
Okay.
Oh wait, is 7 to 29 all homework?
Yes. Okay. All right, then we are going to do number 9. I was trying to remember if I was supposed to do some of the odd ones. That's why I asked. I was like, wait a minute. Because some of them I, like, do the odd ones and some of them I don't. It just depends on the situation. So, okay, well, going back to this. Okay, so an article in the winter 2003 issue of Chance magazine reported on the Houston Independent School District's magnet schools programs. Of the 1,755 qualified applicants, 931 were accepted, 298 were waitlisted, and 526 were turned away for the lack of space. Find the relative frequency distribution of the decisions made and write a sentence describing it. So the values that are going in here are percentages. So I need to find the percent of this total applicants that were accepted, waitlisted, and turned away. So any idea how I would set that up?
You would set the numbers over 1755, like each different one.
Yep, so 931 over 1755. And then this one, 298 over 1755. And then the last one, 526 over 1755. And again, just for the sake of time, I'll give them to you. This one comes out to 53%. This one comes out to 17%. And the last one is 30%. So the thing that says write a sentence describing it, it's kind of just like a concluding statement. What you're going to find is many problems in this class want some sort of a conclusion about what you found, kind of like a summarize your data. So what do you notice about this information? because they accepted over half. So, and then the remaining portion was waitlisted or turned away. Like that's it's short and sweet, but that's literally all you have to have. So I just would say something like over half of qualified students, or I guess you could say applicants. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming they're students, but applicants were accepted, and the remaining were waitlisted or turned away. And that's a sufficient concluding statement. We don't have to do anything crazy with that. So 10 is a continuation of that previous problem. So that's what you're going to find a lot in the book is like problems that may be back to back that are go together or something else. So that's probably why. Oh yeah, see. Magnet Skills problem 9, 10, 25, and 27. So that's why we're doing them all back to back. So continuation of that, 517 of those applicants were either Black or Hispanic, 292 were Asian, and 946 were white. Summarize the relative frequency distribution of ethnicity with a sentence or two in context. So we do the same thing we did on the last one. So, and this is still out of the total 1755. It doesn't like restate that. So a lot of times it will reference you back to a previous problem for some numbers that you may need. So we got 517 out of 1755. We got 292 out of 1755. And then 946 out of 1755. And so that first one is 29%. Second one is 17%. And the last one is 54%. So, what do you think about our concluding sentence on this one?
Including the same type of sentence, just so
Yeah.
over half of the accepted applicants were white, and the remaining were either Black, Hispanic, or Asian.
Yeah. Not accepted, but
Oh, not
applicants.
accepted.
Yeah. Because this is out of the total number. If they had said out of the 931 accepted, then we would, and then they broke it down, but this is just out of the total applicants. This is just another way that they listed off. We don't know if they were accepted, waitlisted, turned away. That might be in a later problem, but at this point we don't know that. So yeah, so of the, and I'm just going to write it a little bit of a different way than what I wrote the last one, but you can write it exactly the same as the previous one. Of the applicants, over half were white. The remaining were Black, Hispanic, or Asian. And obviously in here they lumped like Black and Hispanic, but I figure, you know, however you want to write it is fine. page I need is up here, but it may not be. Oh, it is. Okay. All right. The Chance Magazine article described in Exercise 9 further examined the impact of an applicant's ethnicity on the likelihood of admission to the Houston Independent School District's Magnet Schools program. Those data are summarized in the table below. So now they took what we had in the previous two problems essentially and lumped everything together. So now we can see how many in each category out of the totals were accepted or waitlisted based on ethnicity. So, what percent of all applicants were Asian? So how would we set that one up?
So we're just adding all of the Asian row.
292 to 1755.
So it's the percent of all applicants were Asian. So yep, so 292 over 1755, and that ends up giving us 17%. What percent of the students accepted were Asian?
110 over 931.
Yep, 110 over 931. So that's percent of the students accepted. So that's why we're getting our total from the accepted column, and then we're Asian, so that's 110, and that's going to end up being 12%. What percent of Asians were accepted?
110 over 292.
Yep, 110 over 292. And that ends up being 38%. And then what percent of all students were accepted?
That's 931 over 155. I mean, 1755, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that might have been one that we did on the other page, but I'm not sure. Sounds like one we would have done on the other page, but...
Oh, never mind. I went back to the page just to get it.
53%. Okay, so then 27 is, again, a continuation. So this is the last part of this problem. I think it was the entirety of this problem I chose out of the book. But that's how this goes. Like, and you notice, like, you started, it was like number 9 and number 10, and then it jumped to 25 and 27. Like, it's kind of crazy how they do that. So sometimes the way I order, and that was also why I would type out some of the homework sometimes, because sometimes the way I would order it is I would do it out of order, but I would put it in order of, like, those problems fitting together because...
Is there a reason they have it out of order?
I didn't write the book. I don't know. It irritates me, but... Yeah. At least they put titles on the problems so you don't have to, like, read every single problem and figure out if it goes together. Because it'll be like, this problem was probably called, like, Acceptance Part 1, Acceptance Part 2. Like, it has, like, you know, they label them so you at least kind of know what's happening. Okay, so 27, examine the table about ethnicity and acceptance, so that's the one above, for the magnet program. And does it appear that the admissions decisions are made independent of the applicant's ethnicity? So we need to refer back to number 9, okay, in terms of the percentages for accepted, waitlisted, and turned away. So accepted was 53%. Peacing out. Oh, you're just going to your locker. If there's a lockdown, hurry back. Waitlisted.
Is there supposed to be?
The handbook says there has to be one within the first 10 days of school. So hypothetically, we could have one. However, I'm pretty sure they're not going to do it on a chapel day because there's just a lot happening. But you never know. Waitlisted 17% and turned away was 30%. So I'm just writing that there for my reference because when I'm looking at independence, I want to know, potentially need to be able to look back at that. And I may also need to look at even stuff back from number 10 in terms of the percentages for each of them, which if you had everything in front of you, you wouldn't have to do this, but I don't want to have to like try to, flip back and forth and whatever. So, any day now. Okay. So I want to look at the percentages for accepted applicants out of their total number, like for each. So when we did for Asian, so this is going to be one of the numbers that we need. So we needed the percent of Asians that were accepted. So that was 38%. So I need that for each of them. So I'm just going to do this. For Black or Hispanic, it was 485 out of 517, which was 94%. Asian, we already had that from Part C, but that was 110 out of 292, which was 38%. And then for white was 336 out of 946. And that gives me 36%. So, that's how many of each were accepted, okay? So now if I look back at number 10, I'm not going to rewrite these percentages for the sake of time, but if we remember, of the applicants, 54% were white, 17% were Asian, and 29% were Black or Hispanic. And so now I want to look at turned away, okay? So I've looked at, this was all accepted ones. So I'm going to look at turned away. So that's going to be the number that were turned away out of their total number. So 32 out of 517, which is 6%. Asian was 133 out of 292. Which is 46%. And then white was 359 out of 946, which is 38%. So what I should see here, if they're independent, is that these numbers side by side should be the same. Essentially, you should have just as many that were waitlisted as were turned away as were, or not waitlisted, as were accepted. Yeah. So, are these numbers the same? No. So not independent. And basically to conclude that, we would say most applicants were white. But who had the highest acceptance rate? This column.
Black and Hispanic.
Yep. But the highest acceptance rate was Black or Hispanic. And so the other thing that we should have seen when we did this was that 53% were accepted. We also should have noticed that the accepted amounts should have been the same proportionately if it was really independent. So none of them were even remotely close to the 53%. We had one that was way exceeded 53% and then some that didn't even hit 53%. So that's what we're looking for with that. But we'll do those last two examples tomorrow, and then you'll have the time to work on the problems.
So are you saying for it to be like independent, like Black and Hispanic would both have to be like around like 50%, and then like American would have to be like both around?
Well,
or just around like
are
the
you
same
are you saying
number?
for the total accepted? Like, we would
I don't
need
know.
these numbers to be similar to this number.
So all the accepted ones should have been somewhere around,
In, like, the 50% marker,
Okay.
essentially, is what it's saying.
and like all the ones returned away should have been somewhere near 30.
Should have been, yeah. And then if we did waitlisted, they all should have been somewhere near 17%.
But then the numbers that should equal each other are the accepted and turned away for like each category. So like the Asian turned away should.
Technically speaking, it actually should line up with this. I said it backwards. It really should line up with these values that we got, which is why I wrote
Wait,
those
so
initially.
that's accepted. So that means like if it was independent, all of those would be around 53%.
All of those should be around the same amount, which would tell us that it was truly independent of their race
Okay.
or ethnicity.
And then can one of them be independent but the other one not be? Like could it be?
No, they would all have to be.
Okay. So like
For what they ask us, because they said are admissions decisions independent of the applicant's ethnicity.
Okay.
They would all have to
so
be
even
for
if all
us
of
to
the
say
accepted
it.
was 53%, but if the turned away wasn't 30% or like around that, then it wouldn't be independent.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like everything has to be like okay.
Yeah, everything in this column should have been about the same for it to have been independent. Everything over here should have been the same for it to be independent.
Okay.
Essentially, is what it's saying. Yeah, I said it backwards because I forgot what it was actually asking us about.
So are we doing the rest of this for homework?
No, we'll do 22 and 24 tomorrow, and then you'll have time that's left in class to do the worksheet and stuff, and then
Is it,
it'll
like,
be due
due
Monday.
Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you should have time. It shouldn't take us. 22 and 24 aren't super long, so we should get through it. It's just the main reason I want to do it is 24 has a side-by-side bar chart in it, so I want to make sure we do another one of those so that y'all have seen that and stuff.